Welcome to another Startaloo Bootcamp session. Totally pumped about today. Honestly, I can't believe we got Dino Watt on this show. I'm not gonna lie, I am humbled.
Please.
You have a ticket tape. You got things going on your screen. I don't know how you did that, but that is so sweet. And so, today, Dino and I met, not too long ago, and I did a webinar for him. He asked me to join, which was cool. And, we got to talking around while we were setting that up, and we were talking about the follow-up and how important that is for orthodontists and how it seems to be a very missed opportunity, a big missed opportunity for so many people. And we were just talking, and it's like, man, we are on the same page with this. And so when we were setting up this boot camp, obviously, anybody who's a Startaloo user knows that is a big part of what we offer. So I invited him to be on our bootcamp series so that we could just talk a little bit about the art of the follow-up. So let me, I'm going to just share my screen, but thank you, Dino, for being on today. I really appreciate it.
Man, thanks for having me here. I appreciate it. And I like seeing people popping in here to the attendee list. We got Brad and Evan and Nancy and more to come. I'm excited about that. I do. I'm passionate about this subject. I think it's funny when I talk to doctors and, they talk about cash flow or revenue, and it's an area where I'll always ask them, like, okay, what's your follow-up system like? They're like, well, no, we follow people. I'm like, no. It's a system. There's got to be a system. If it's not a system, it's going to fall because we get busy, right? Like if I don't have a system for working out, I'll call myself out on this right now. I have been working out every day for the past, I want to say I was like every day, even Sundays, which I never did before, for about 2 months straight.
Wow.
Then Corona happened and I was like, okay, I'm going to keep it up. And about 2 weeks into it, I got so crazy busy that I missed 1 day, then 2 days, and 3 days. And cut to right now, it's I worked out Saturday because I have a dance class that I go to. I love to dance.
Okay.
But I was going to like the gym and doing weights, and I was doing amazing on my eating plan and all that stuff. But I let the system fall. I let go of the system. And so therefore, folks, entropy happens to everyone.
Yeah.
So no matter how good intentioned you are, no matter how good intentioned your team members are, your TCs are, it's going to fall by the wayside. So unless you have a system to do it, it's one of the reasons why I enjoy talking to you about Startaloo. Is just saying, geez, gosh, could you make it more, for lack of a better term, brain dead? Like just do it.
Yeah.
Just plug it in and get it done. So no, I'm grateful to be here and talk about this.
Yeah, anytime in our office, my office manager and I, if we're having like a consistent problem, we always say, is it system or personnel, right?
Yes.
And if it's a system problem, okay, and sometimes it's hard to tell. Sometimes you're like, well, maybe it isn't a system problem, maybe it's just the wrong person. You don't really know. But eventually we get to the point where we go, okay, we can't make this system any easier. We've done everything we can. So now it's a personnel problem. And that just means maybe it's the wrong person, right? It may not be that nobody can do it. It's just we have it. Maybe we got to do some shuffling around. But yeah, everything that we do in our practices comes down to systems. And if you don't have the systems in place, it's going to fall apart. It's just, if you look at all the pain points of most practices, it's from just having the lack of a solid system in place.
Yeah.
So I'll do a little intro here. Let me share my screen. But yeah, that is so true. And so many times you struggle with problems month after month after month. And then finally you go, I can't believe that system didn't come to us. And sometimes it could be so dumb. One of the simplest things, I'll just kind of share this. And, one of the simplest, I oftentimes had a hard time remembering things. I see about 100 to 120 patients a day. So, things come up and, parents will say something to me and, it's like, oh, I got to put that in the treatment card at the end of the day. And I would write it in a notebook and then I'd lose my notebook. Just a mess. And for years, I couldn't figure out how to fix this problem to remember to do things. I know that sounds so silly, but it just was I was just forgetting stuff. And then finally, I was like, I got Post-it notes and I put Post-it notes all over the office. And I said, anytime something comes up, I'm putting on a Post-it note and I'm stuffing it in a little little bucket next to my desk. I don't have a desk. I have I stand in the middle of the operatory. That's my desk. And I've got this little rack, and everything has to fit in that rack. And I just stuff it in the bucket. And then at the end of the day, I just file through the Post-it notes. And it's so easy for me in the middle of something just to write something down. And that's a system, right? It's the most basic system you can have. And yet it was a problem that took me 13 years to figure out.
Have you read The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg?
No, I'm going to write it down.
Yeah, everybody should be reading Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, all of your team members. And the breakdown of it is basically his premise is we do nothing by choice. We do everything by habit. Even the things we think we're making a choice to do, we're not. It's a habit we've created. So knowing that means that we can also create the opposite or the better habit if it's a bad habit we've created. Like there's good habits and there's bad habits. And a lot of them are based upon micro habits that we get into and break it down to even triggers. So what you have to do is, and what you did there is you created a trigger that when this happens, then this will happen.
Right.
So I have a trigger that I do every morning. I've done pretty much for the last year. I think I've maybe missed 1 or 2 days, maybe, that every morning, the moment my feet hit the ground and I feel the carpet on my bare feet or the linoleum or the hotel room wherever I am, when my feet hit the ground, I have a glass of water right next to my bed and I drink the entire glass of water. That's a trigger that if I don't do it, and I remember the 1 or 2 days that I didn't because it's so triggered in my head that I didn't do it, I remember it. So you have to have that trigger. There's actually an app called WTTT, which is a plugin you can use, when this, then that, that you can put in there. Zapier has another one, right? Where you can do this email comes in, it goes to this email file, it goes to this. So yeah, it's so important to do that, to create those.
That's cool. Yeah, I'll put that book on our Facebook page so that if anybody wants to check it out, I'll get
I'll probably name like 5 or 6 other books. So
right, I'll put them all on. Everybody's got to read them before next week. So, we titled this The Art of the Following Up. So this is a part of our Startaloo boot camp. The idea of this is to bring on great guests and also just talk about things that, it's not enough for us just to hear these things that we need to do. We have to actually do them. And, we're getting closer and closer to opening, which is exciting, which is great. But it means that, if you've been sitting through webinars, and I know I have, I don't even know how many webinars I've sat through and listened to. And, if you're not going to apply what you're learning, it's not doing anything good for you. So you have to actually apply it. So that was the goal of this. And, we'll talk even a little bit today on, for our Startaloo users, how you can set it into motion. And then also, you can do it even if you're not using our software. So again, we got Dino Watt on, and I'm going to read your bio just because you've got like the coolest bio.
Oh, good.
So I'm going to read it.
Wait just a moment. Let me bring my wife in and let her hear this.
Yeah, I'm going to make sure mine's not listening. What are you doing with your time? So Dino Watt is the founder and CEO of Our Ripple Effect, Inc. It is one of the most exciting business relationship trainers in the world. He is an award-winning mentor and author. He has been focused on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox News, and TEDx. As a high-performance practice advisor, Dino has frequently been referred to as the Tony Robbins of private practices. I'm laughing for a reason. His goal is to help business leaders create more passion, be more productive, and create more profit in all areas of their life. Nothing will ruin your best employees faster than watching you tolerate a bad one. So again, thank you so much for being on. I'm laughing because my wife said, "Oh, who are you going to be interviewing?" And I was like, the Tony Roberts of Orthodontics. So, so I use that. So why don't we kick it off and, let's just talk about it. Let's just get into, what you're passionate about. What we're passionate about is like the follow up and like why this is such a challenge for practices. So, tell me a little bit about what your experience has been. And what are the common mistakes that orthodontists make when it comes to, we'll focus on the pending patients that came in, presented treatment, said, I got to think about it. I got to go talk to dad or whatever it is. What do you commonly see as a mistake that a lot of orthodontic practices make?
Yeah, I think it's so important to realize. So my passion is relationships, right? And if I think everybody on your call, anybody that's in your universe is going to agree that the best way to create a great relationship is through communication. And if our only communication is when we want something from the other person, and not helping them get what they want, then that's a broken communication. Robert Cialdini talks about how part of influence of people is to help them not have the regret of loss. So here's where the big mistake comes in. Somebody comes to our office, we do our whole song and dance, and that's going to be different now after, coronavirus, but whatever that looks like, we do our whole thing. We present them a case. Our first mistake, we don't have a TC who understands the importance of setting up for success, meaning a sales-driven TC, someone who has overcome their challenges or their objections before they even walked into the office. There's a lot that goes on to that of creating a scenario to where that person is coming in ready to buy, not to be a looky-loo. Then next, that person, for whatever reason, let's just say they don't purchase. And that's the reason why we have follow-up. Well, now we have a system in place that actually the mistake is to where we only do a follow-up up until a certain point. And almost all excuses for not following up break down to, from what I've heard from TCs, and usually not from the doctors, right? Because I think most doctors are like, yeah, keep following up until they tell you no, right? But for a lot of TCs, it's, we don't want to be pushy. We don't want to bug them. I already sent out the text and email and the call. And I mean, if they want it, they'll contact us. That's how I would work. And that's not true, by the way. But but that's what they'll say. And so my response to that always is, why would you ever want to break down a relationship with someone whom you started the relationship with? You took them out on the date. They said they wanted more information, or they wanted maybe to go the next step. But if they don't respond to your first or second or third text, you treat it as, why don't they get a hint, as opposed to, boy, they must be busy. Mm-hmm. I know every single doctor on this call, every TC that I've ever talked to, myself included, when I have really just kind of been like dog to the bone and went after it and kept going, I've gotten so many people who will say, thank you so much for reminding me. Thank you so much for keep calling me. I really appreciate it. I am so busy. We're so egotistical to think that they are thinking about us after they leave our parking lot. They're not. The mom every single one of them that's on this call or that's heard this has had a situation where they said, well, I'm going to go talk to my spouse. And you're thinking that means tonight, right? They're going to do that tonight. And that spouse has completely forgotten about it that day, the next day, maybe until the next weekend, and they don't get back to the spouse until there's a continual follow-up or a conversation. My point is this: we fail when we are not caring about our patients enough to always be following up until they tell me, no, I've got braces from someone else, I'm still following up.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think, one of the things we see, I 100%, the reason most people will tell you is, I don't want to be pushy. And, we oftentimes will tell people, when's the last time your friend tried to text you and you didn't reply back to them? And, your friends mean more to you than the orthodontist you just spent an hour with, for the first time. I know that's hard for us to believe because we do, like you said, we're somewhat egotistical. We think, people spend time coming to the office. They have to be thinking about us, but there's so much going on in their life. And yeah, it's usually just a time issue. There was a book, I'm going to see if I can find it. It was a book I read. It had to be about a year ago. And it was really for the business world on following up and being persistent in the business world. We're trying to figure out if that could translate into, our practice. And it did. And it was this whole thing of 95% of people don't contact you, or it's not because of lack of caring or that they're not interested. It's just because they got busy. Something else got in the way.
If you think about the way that we buy anyway, most research will show you that it takes about anywhere between 7 to 12 contacts for somebody to make a buying decision. So how can we, my thought is, how can we get through as many of those as possible before we even get them to the office? But then if they don't say yes then and there, then what are you doing to continually follow up with them afterwards? I think it's just, I want to connect with people. I want people to know that you saying yes or no to me is a matter. Well, let me just put it this way. I want for you not to think that the only reason I want a relationship with you is so that you'll say yes to me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't answer my phone call or my email, then my mind is, well, then they're just too busy for me. I'm just going to, well, no, they're not too busy for you. They're just busy. They're having a life, and your job is to continue to follow up. That's what you're paid for, or to do, is to help them say yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's through follow up.
Yeah. Do you think, I've always felt, and I've done a little research into this, that part of the reason people don't follow up, and tell me if you think I'm wrong, because I would really want an honest opinion on this, but there is research to say that's part of the reason we don't follow up is because we don't want to hear no.
Sure.
That there's this element that like, well, if it's a maybe, I didn't get rejected. And, a lot of times we hire treatment coordinators for their personality. They tend to be outgoing people. That tends to be the person that's like, emotionally connected. And if you hear rejection, sometimes that can be hurtful. I mean, I tend to not take rejection well. I'll be honest about it. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes if you get a maybe, well, it's like, well, they didn't say no. I feel better about that. And, that's not a good business decision.
It's the reason why most salespeople will consider it a victory if they can make the offer. Mm. And that's a big mistake. Most salespeople will consider it a victory. And that's what you'll hear them say. Well, I got to the price. I got to give them the price. And by the way, it's what the potential client, customer, patient is desperate for too.
Right.
Like they'll do anything. They'll do anything. They'll go crazy if you don't give them a price. That's all they want. Why is it the first thing they ask? What's the price? Well, gosh, if what I do isn't a fit for you, it's absolutely free because it's not going to cost you a thing, right? Mm-hmm. We have to get into that space of being willing to not focus on the price part of it, focus on the value of it. And then the victory for the TC is the closing of it. This is why I talk about so much. There's a different art form between presenting a case and selling versus closing a case. Mm-hmm. They're two different things. It's like driving the ball down the the green versus putting the ball and getting it in the hole.
Yeah. Do you find, we find that sometimes I use the word sales probably similar to how you do. And I say all the time, we're selling. And a lot of orthodontists, and I don't know if this is maybe a generational thing. I don't know if younger orthodontists don't feel this way, but they don't like the word sales in what we do. I would argue my teachers are selling my kids every day they go to school. Yep. Anytime you're trying to get someone to buy into something, it doesn't have to be negative. It's just anything. I'm trying to sell to my kids why they need to eat broccoli at dinner. Yep.
All
whether I'm bargaining with them or whatever it is, it's a sales transaction. It may not be financial, but it's a sales transaction. So I think do you think that mindset is important for us to overcome some of our own barriers to getting patients to start treatment?
Oh yeah, 100%. A couple of things. There is a great video on YouTube called "Is Selling Evil" by Joe Polish. It's it's like a whiteboard drawing thing. It's a voiceover of him speaking, and they made a whiteboard of it. It's a great explanation, and I think every TC, every doctor should be watching it to understand the difference. You're 100% correct. We are always selling something. You're selling your spouse on why do you want to date with you this weekend. I'm selling everybody on this video right now to actually go through the start of the process and actually learn it and use something that you bought. We've all bought something before we don't use, right? Mm-hmm. So this is the sales process. But so there's two reasons why people don't like sales. And this is what I talk a lot about when I talk to TCs and I do my trainings around the psychology of sales. Because there's a psychology not just on how to sell, but the psychology that you have to have about selling. Selling is a beautiful, wonderful, powerful thing. It's the only reason we have everything we have in the world. Someone sold you on why to go to college and become an orthodontist. Someone sold you on why to buy the car that you did, the house that you did. And you think, oh no, I sold myself. No, someone sold you on it. The idea, the possibility, and all that's great. We wouldn't have what we have in this life right now if we didn't have sales. But there's two reasons people don't like selling. Number one is because they either sold something in their past to someone else that they knew they shouldn't have sold them. Or number two, they purchased something that they know they should not have purchased. And so there's that bad taste in your mouth between those two things. And when that happens, we create a story around selling, and it's a lot easier. Man, you know what, Anthony, it's a lot easier for me to say, Anthony, you know, I bought this thing from Anthony. I bought this pen from Anthony, and the pen was dry when I got home. It's a lot easier for me to blame Anthony for selling me a dry pen than it is for me to say, man, I should have taken this out of the box and made sure it was like my mistake. It's a lot easier to blame someone else. It's a lot easier to blame the orthodontist about my kid not brushing their teeth and wearing their bands and doing what they should be. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to say, I did not make sure there was a routine for my kid to get the thing that he wants. So we all do that. So whether it be in your own life, what you've purchased and you shouldn't have, or you sold and you shouldn't have. And I'm totally guilty of this, by the way. I talk about this because I truly believe this. I used to work for Circuit City years and years ago. Now you're probably too young to know what Circuit City is, right?
No, I know what Circuit City is. Yeah.
So I used to sell at Circuit City back in the year, 1990. I was 94 is when I got married. So 95 is when I was working at Circuit City. I used to sell computers, desktop computers, the old Pac Bells and all those other ones, whatever, right? I knew nothing about computers. I took the test that you had to do. I learned the verbiage. This is back when they bought out a gigabyte hard drive. We literally would tell people, you'll never have to buy another one again. This is all you'll need, right? I sold stuff that I shouldn't have sold. I did it because I needed the money and I needed to know. And I believe that I knew what they told me was correct, but I didn't believe in the product, right? So I totally get it. That's why you have to have people who are working for you, who are passionate about what you do, and they understand that sales is simply this. It's a transference of my enthusiasm about the value and the opportunity to you. And this is where the trick comes in. Anthony, if I try to sell you on something that I have and you say no to me, it doesn't make the value or the effectiveness of my product any worse. Right. The same way, if you say yes to me, it doesn't make the value or the opportunity of my product any better. Yeah. And that's what messes us up, because people don't want to say sales, because especially in the ortho world, it's because we're not really looking at it as a commodity, which it is.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. You know, I 100% agree with everything you said. I think, yeah, there's this feeling of, if I designate it as sales, I no longer believe in what I'm selling or I'm trying to offer. It cheapens it, right? And it's, you know, it's not. I think if you're trying to get somebody to buy into what you're offering, and you should believe enough in what you're offering that you want them to buy it. And so that's a sales transaction, plain and simple. So, just to ask another question, one thing that we talk about too on the follow-up is that, our software has the ability to hire a virtual assistant to do the follow-up on your behalf. So we spend a lot of time making sure, we're efficient at it, we're good at it, right? Because one of the things we talk about is that maybes eat up resources, right? If I get someone to say yes, I get someone to say a no, either way, I'm moving on, right? I mean, And obviously you want to get as many yeses. So you're not trying to bum rush people to get them to say no, but because that wouldn't be good business sense anyway. But, as long as you've got maybes out there, that means more people you have to track down, and you've got to be very efficient and almost a surgical precision attack on your follow-up system to make sure you're getting those yes and no's.
I think I said this on the big webinar to you. If I did, and people heard this, forgive me, but I'll say it again. not only is a maybe a terrible place to be for a salesperson, but it tells me that you as a salesperson were not clear with the person in front of you to let them know it's okay to tell you no.
Right.
So I will tell people, you know what, I'm looking for a yes or a no. Either one is perfectly acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to know that it's okay. So the other part of that is this: when you're figuring out how you can best serve them and how you can overcome an objection if they have one, or if they're being wishy-washy, I will say this, and there's a recording of me saying this on, I have a TC sales training masterclass that I do, and the teaser trailer for it has this in it. And I'll get comments from people just from watching the teaser trailer, because they're like, wait a minute, why is that? There's only 3 reasons why people don't buy. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it be a car or house or braces, it doesn't matter. There's only 3 reasons why people don't buy. Number 1, they don't trust you as the person who is selling and explaining what the thing is to them. Number 2, they don't trust themselves to actually be able to do the thing, pay the payment, keep it up to date, and take care of the thing that they're buying. They don't trust themselves to understand the technology, whatever it is, they don't trust themselves. And lastly is they don't want to make a decision either way. And they came in with that.
Yeah.
So I will literally ask people this, and I'll tell TCs, you should ask this. So you know what? There's only 3 reasons that I'll do it this way because it's a lot softer. You know what? Hey, Mr. Anthony, because I can't pronounce your last name as well as my wife. What we found for most of our patients is that people typically don't purchase when they're in the office right in front of us right now after the doctor just diagnosed them and said this is what they need, for one of 3 reasons. Either they don't trust us, or me, they don't trust themselves, or they don't want to make a decision either way. Which one of those 3 would it be for you? And people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you would say that. And you know what happens every time? Like every time when I say that to people, they go, well, yeah, I don't know if I can trust myself to make that payment every month. Or, yeah, I don't know if I totally trust you guys to deliver what you said you could deliver. They open their mouth and they tell you what the problem is. No one's ever. I've been doing sales for 20 years. I've been doing that process for about 10 years when I'll say that to people. I've never had a single person go back and go, oh, that's so rude. How dare you ask me how I really feel about this?
Right. And how amazing is that from a feedback standpoint, what you could change in practice, right?
Yes. And most of the time they tell you what the exact objection is, and then you can talk about it. Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't tell you about this. Oh, I didn't realize you didn't understand that. Let me walk you through that again. Let me clarify that. And then I say, so other than that thing you just said, other than you're not sure if little Johnny's going to be able to wear those Invisalign every single night because he's kind of, stubborn. Other than that, is there anything else that would stop you from moving forward today? Nope, that's pretty much it. I don't know. Oh, okay, cool. Now I can work with that.
Right. And, there's only so many ways that people can say no, right? You boil it down to 3, and there's maybe some subcategories, within there. And I would assume you just need to have, this is what we do in our office. We have scripts, if this, then that, right? We're going back to the if then, if they say, well, I don't know if I can afford it, then you go into your, your mode of what the next objection, how to overcome that objection. So I think, what you're saying is great, because unless you're asking, you can't work through that. That's like, if you play baseball and you've never faced a fastball, how are you going to go to the plate and hit one if you've never seen one before? And so unless you're asking to get those objections, you as an organization can't overcome them because you're not practicing.
You have to be able to ask questions of what people want. That's the most important question you could ever ask anybody, by the way, is what do you want, right? Even yourself, what do you want? If you can tell me and we can get down to what you want and the truth of what you want, then I can decide whether I can answer that, can deliver that for you or not. If not, we're both in limbo, and we're both playing, blindfold. What's that? Pin the tail on the donkey, right? Trying to find the right spot. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's so crucial to ask those questions, to that's why I think the pre-screening is so important as well. That's why you can't just have a great TC. You have to have a really good phone ninja who's doing that director of first impressions, because they've got to be able to ask the right questions. I like scripts for making sure we did this, this, and this. I don't like scripts for people to use them as a crutch, right? I want people to be able to like have that conversation with you and just to know what you do so well that when it gets to that point, they can go to here. And it's a talent. I mean, it is something that you have to work with. You have to find the right people to do that. I think, unfortunately, when it comes to the director of first impressions, a lot of times we get somebody who sounds nice on the phone and they'll show up for 8 hours of the day, right?
And well, again, you know, if you're not asking and you're not practicing that and you're being intentional about that, you can't practice. I mean, you know, it's just, you have to get good. I know a lot of times, you know, we as an organization, we will try to find out why patients aren't starting. We'll ask those questions.
So smart.
And then we track it. So we go in and we tag it so that you can get data feedback as to what are the majority of your patients saying when they're not starting. And, you know, a lot of practices are hesitant to ask, and then you can't make adjustments. And then you also can't script how to overcome it. Right. I mean, you can only get better at what you're practicing. I mean, and if you're not,
well, that's a really good point. More than scripting, role playing.
Right.
And I know I just heard the chorus of groans the moment I said role playing from all the 12 people that we have on here right now. But how else do you get better than practicing it? You role play. You roll, and by the way, you don't have to make up role plays. You actually have scenarios every single day that come into your office that you can say, hey, yesterday, this is what happened. Here's the scenario. How would you deal with this? What would we do? Here's what we want you to say when this happens. I would hate, I wouldn't even hate it. I wouldn't even get on it. I would not get on a plane knowing that this place, you know, those checklist things, that's unimportant. I don't need to worry about that. We need to practice in the simulator. It's fine. We've done this 20 years. We're good. That's crazy.
Yeah. All right. So here's a question. So the majority of practices that come up and we talk to, they batch their phone calls, right? They batch their new patient phone calls. And, you know, I have my opinion on that. And there's a lot of really good data about how, I don't want to say destructive, but it's probably the best word for it. I mean, if you're batching them once a month, I mean, just how much you're losing on production is pretty crazy. Give me your take on it. You know, practice comes up to you and says, yeah, we're batching our phone calls. What are you going to say to them?
So when you say batching them, you're saying that they are getting together once, like every 2 weeks and just doing them all at once?
Yeah, I wish most practices were doing once every 2 weeks, but it seems like a lot of them were saying like once a month we go through our list and, you know, it goes to somebody and they just fly through them. You know, give me your take on that.
My take would be that for me, that's going to be the fastest way to not get responses and to have a lot of people who found someone else who was willing to follow up faster. Right? Like I have a mentor who says this, and so I'm going to steal the line from him. But whenever I'm like not pushing myself or when I'm not asking for the sale or whatever, he'll say, Dino, why do you hate money so much? And that's what I would say to the TCs, like, why do you hate money so much? Now, on a TC standpoint, for the most part, I'm sure most people who are on here aren't actually sorry, I just saw somebody on the thing that Andrew. Hi, Andrew. Good to see you. So for the most part, most TCs aren't directly responsible for the bills and bringing in cash and stuff in their mind, right? They're thinking they do a job and that's it. Right. As an owner, you obviously don't hate money. You want to make money because it's the oxygen of your business. I think people who aren't making it, so here's what I would do. Here's how to answer it. Anthony, you come into my office, for whatever reason, I've had an off day and I can't get you to sign up on the day that you came in. I'm telling you, so I'm going to follow up with you tomorrow. Does that sound good? Yes. Okay. So I call you tomorrow and you don't answer. Guess what I'm doing the next day? I'm following up. And by the way, I would know this ahead of time, but what is your favorite way of being followed up with? Is it text? Is it email? Is it whatever? I'm going to use those things and then I'm going to spread it out. Right. But I am going to have a daily way of connecting with you. Because if sales is my job, then you being my potential client, I have got to continually follow up with you over and over and over again and not go on to the next person, right? The problem is that they'll say, well, I'm so busy because I have more patients the next day. Okay, well then come in a half an hour early to make those phone calls. Right. Okay, then sit through your lunch and make those phone calls. That's what a salesperson does. A salesperson's all about, they're looking at, am I going to win the game or not? A salesperson is your quarterback, and I don't know what the other person is who runs the ball into the thing, but is that the running back?
Running back, yeah.
That running back? Look at that. Knows nothing about sports, but it sounds like that would be it. Like those two people have to work together in order to get the ball in. Every once in a while, there'll be a special somebody else who makes it from some weird play. But for the most part, that's what we need. Right. Well, that's what your salespeople are in your office.
Yeah, you'd wonder if, I don't think I'd ever recommend this, but if treatment coordinators were solely on commission basis, if their approach to the follow-up would be different, if rather than it being just a.
Oh, Anthony, I do recommend it.
Oh yeah.
I believe that there will be a time, and actually I think it's gonna be faster now with COVID, what happened, more than later. My prediction over the last probably 5 years is that within the next 10 years, it'll be a majority of the way that we do business when it comes to TCs, because what you get is you get a couple of really powerful things. Number one, you get someone who is focused on making sure that they're up-leveling their skills in that department so well that they're bringing you in more money. You get a non-cap on a paycheck. So how many TCs are asking for raises because they've been breathing the same air for the last 12 months that you have, right? There's no real reason for them to have a pay raise other than time, which is the worst way to ask for a raise, right? It's like, it's the equivalent of a patient choosing you because of either price or location. Those are two terrible ways to market your company. But a team member, and I'm going to use a TC in this case, but this goes for all your team members, but a TC who is only basing their raise potential off of the longevity of them being there is costing you money. They're not bringing you money. Right. And so I think TCs, when you go to a TC and you say, matter of fact, I just had this conversation, I think it was yesterday with my son. My son works for a company called Comcast, one of those, where he does phone sales, and it's incoming calls, so he doesn't have to do outsource calls, but for every other extra he is able to sell, he gets a commission base, and they gave him his commission breakdown, and I'm like, oh, I want to see that. But if I were to go to you, and how many TCs do you have, Anthony?
We'll say 4. 3.
Yeah, 4
full-time. Yeah, 1 part-time.
Okay, so we'll go with 3. So we'll say three TCs. If I were to go to TCs and say, hey, so we're going to have a base rate of X amount of dollars. Let's just say it's $18 an hour. I don't know. You're in New York?
I'm in New York, yeah.
New York. So that's probably like minimum wage, right? So $18 an hour. So let's just say it's $18 an hour. And for my expectation is that this month in January, our goal is to hit, I'm going to make up numbers here to make it easy for everybody and for my math to be easy. We're going to hit 50 starts in this month. For every start that you hit over 50, every start you hit over 50 at a certain price point, so like our average number or whatever, not phase ones or whatever, but for every start's over 50, I'm going to give you 3% of the total amount of that sale. If you get up to 55, that goes up to 3.5%. If it goes up to 60, it goes up to 4%. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
now that TC is going, oh wait, so like I literally could make anything I want on my paycheck, and you're going, as long as you're bringing me more money, because that 50 is your baseline, right? So the 50 is making sure your bare butt minimum's covered, all that stuff. Anything above that, you're going, sweet.
Yeah. And that's a very common commission schedule for, non-orthodontics, right? That's a very common way of setting up a price scale.
That's why I think it's going to increase that way. Now, think about it this way. How much better would their follow-up be?
Right. Yeah.
Their follow-up would be killer, right? They're getting to the end of the month. They know they've got a couple of months left or a couple of days left, and they can hit that next tier to get another percentage or 2% or whatever. They're going to be following up. They're going to work through lunch. They're going to come in early because there's something that's driving them for it. And that oxygen that they're bringing in, i.e. money into your business, just improves your business.
Right. That's cool. You know, it's always funny. We laugh about it in our office because we have a bonus system, and you know, the whole office our bonus system is structured so everybody gets a bonus, and it's kind of gotten complicated, but it works for us. It's worked really well. And we always kind of laugh how, like, you know, the last week before that monthly cutoff, we're like, oh man, we are pretty far. And then everyone's working like 3 times as hard. And like, we almost hit it, you know, and a lot of times it comes down to like that day, but there is something about that motivating factor of like, man, if I hit this, you know, we're going to get extra. It does work. You know, it works. And I think what you're proposing is a great idea.
The reason why life is precious is because we know there's an end.
Yeah.
So we treat it preciously. The reason why sales work and goals work is because we know there's an end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great. So in the last, you know, few minutes here, obviously anybody who uses our software, you have a 100% pending solution that you can use. You can have it just trigger tasks to your team. You can have it automate, so it automatically sends off text and email, or you can actually recruit a virtual assistant to do the follow-up on your behalf. Or the fourth option is you do all 3. It doesn't have to be all one or all the other. You just kind of pick and choose what order you want them to go in. But let's say somebody's not using a system like ours. You know, what is a good, you know, follow-up system do you recommend, or is there one? I mean, that's one of the reasons why I think ours has become kind of popular, is because people haven't been able to figure this out.
Well, I think one of the reasons why most people don't have a good follow-up system is typically because they're having the TC do too much that's beyond the scale of what her job is. Mm-hmm. Right? Like when I go into offices and I see TCs that are doing records, as well as the tour, as well as doing the exam, you're having that person, you're paying that person way too much money to do something they shouldn't be doing.
Right.
And so of course the TCs will come back with, well, I don't have time to follow up. I mean, when am I going to do that? Each appointment takes an hour and a half long to do that, and I can only do so many in the day. So the first thing that they have to do is you have to have a written and accountable follow-up schedule. Mm-hmm. We talked about this earlier, when this happens, when that person leaves the office, this is what's going to happen. What follow-up they're going to get. There's a doc on, Scottsdale, Arizona, Dr. Bader. They created the system that this was their system. If somebody didn't close, no, I actually think they started to do it even if they did close, so that dads would know. But if one parent was the only person in there, which happens so often, right? Dr. Bader would spend an hour of his evening after work was over, the office closes down, he goes to his office and he would record on his computer screen a screen grab capture for 1 minute. And he got it down so good that it was 1 minute and said, hey, Dad, I just wanted to let you know, or Mom, whoever it was, I want to let you know that this is what I talked about with little Johnny and your wife today. And this is what we're going to do. And he'd have the x-rays up to point out what was happening and what he was going to do. And so my diagnosis is this. What I told your wife and little Johnny is that we can have it out of braces in 18 to 24 months. We can get you started next Thursday. We have the spot still available according to my TC Jody. She would love to get you started. Please call us back in the morning and let us know if we can get things started.
Yeah.
You do that in like a minute. Mm-hmm. And his conversions after that just started just like piling on, because people are like, oh, you gave me all the information. Mom doesn't have to remember. Right. By the way, she's a really bad orthodontist, so she can't tell everything that you said, right? And then he's talking to it. But the point is that it was a system. Yeah. Every single night, the doctor did this. Yep, it's more time. Yep, he's tired. Yep, it's been a rough day. And do you want to make more money or not? Why do you hate money? Right?
Yeah.
So then from there, you go to the next thing and next thing. How to do it is your question. And my answer is really, well, it depends on how you're willing to put up the system. It doesn't matter really what it looks like, as long as it's consistent and written and accountable. Right. The accountability part is the scorecard. You have to be able to have that scorecard.
Yeah. Yeah. For all our people who are Startaloo users, you can do that right in our portal. You can put that video right in, and then they have access to all the appliances, how they work, those videos, payment options, they can sign contracts. So you can put that in. So it really makes a nice workflow from, a little personal message all the way through to signing contracts. And also, you know, if you're using our system, it also keeps track of all your follow-ups. And so, you know, and the doctors can check in and see if they're done. It's funny, did you want to say something?
I was going to say, and that's why it's so good with Startaloo is, and Annette said, and repeatable, right? Because I said, you got to have accountability and repeatable. That's
Right.
what's cool about the Startaloo process is it's repeatable.
Right. Yeah, you set up. I'll show you here. I'm just going to share my screen as we kind of wind things down here. Try not to keep it too long because I know everybody's had a long day. So just for everybody's information, what we were talking about is a pending tree. We do have a pending tree that we've customized. We can put this we'll put this on our Facebook page just so everybody can look at it. This is one that we found that works really well for us, for our clients, our practices, and following up. So, you know, we can walk through this. And one thing we didn't talk about, and, you know, maybe another day I can have you come on, is talk about like how to set it up so you aren't annoying, because there is definitely an art to that too. Remember, phone call, text message, and email, those are 3 different touch points. And, you know, like Dino said, sometimes you have to ask them, but, you know, if you're not asking them, you can set up a custom tree and then that'll just kind of kick off. Email is less annoying than text message because it's not as, intrusive. So if you're having a hard time getting in touch with them, you can kind of pepper in a few emails and then you can come back to text. So there's a way of doing it. There's kind of an art and science to it, but, you know, we'll put this on our Facebook page.
Are your emails, and I apologize for not knowing this, are the emails embedded through Startaloo, or is it just like a prompt to say, hey, send email?
Nope, you can actually pre-script your follow-up right in Startaloo. And so you've got it already. And then you can customize it on the fly too. So you can have them set off to go off automatically if you didn't want to have them personalized, which is, you know, better than doing nothing. Or you can have the TC go in, make a little personal message. And then if our virtual assistants are doing it, we send it off on your behalf. You've pre-scripted it already. And we, you know, just kind of add the little notes that you might have put in, and then we field them. So the minute they come in, we're responding right away to get them to come right back to the table. So it's basically a way of, you know, making your follow-up seamless so you're not having any lag time.
Can I give you a Dino aha moment right now?
Yeah, sure.
So tell me your VAs, and hopefully everybody will get this on here too. So your VAs on here, are they only for the follow-up process?
Right now.
So here's something that everybody could do on their own, but I also think would be kind of interesting here. And it could be something that everybody could even pay a little extra for a VA to do this, because I think it's so powerful. Or you could hire your own VA to do this, by the way. In the book Influence, Robert Cialdini talks about how important it is for us to actually really connect with people. And he's actually re-releasing the book the end of this year. And he's got a whole new chapter in there about what makes people actually make the decision to move forward with you or build that connection with you. And a couple of things he talks about is if you give them something that's personal and something that's unexpected. So you asked what a good process would be. Very easily, the more value you give to people, the more likely they're going to buy from you, right? Mm-hmm. So give them value. You're not going to know what that value is 100% unless you actually ask the question. So my point of the VA is, once you get have somebody call in and your director of first impressions gets information from them, something I would do, and this is why I got my little smirkish face on, there's so much information out in the world today that I think we're going to come into a place, especially in the next couple of months and years, that we need to have more information on people to help us make a better connection with them. So why not have someone on your team first ask, hey, what's your favorite this? Do you go to this school? Are you big fans of this thing? Disney, the Angels, whatever it is, right? New York Yankees, whatever. And speak to that. And if you can, give to that when they come in, or if you're following up, speak to like, hey, did you see? So let's just say they're a big Yankees fan and you know this because you did the research or you asked the questions. In the email to Anthony, and Anthony, are you a Yankees or a Mets fan?
I'm a Yankee fan.
Okay. So, all right. So Yankee, I'm going to say, hey, Anthony, did you see that Yankee game last night? That was pretty amazing, right? Hey, I just wanted to follow up with you about our conversation. That just doing that alone is going to help that connection be there. There's a whole bunch of other stuff we get into, but
Yeah, and we can do that. Again, for our Starly users, you can put notes into. There's a little section in the
That's
patient
awesome.
profile, and then that tells our VAs what we need to use. So anything that they put in there, we use as our follow up. So we'll incorporate that into our scripting. So any notes that we get, even if it's like if you put the objection that dad was the concern, and we can use that for our scripting too, because we've got the different pathways to go. So yeah, that's great. I mean, anything that we can do to make it more personal. The patients don't know we're not in your office. That's kind of the cool thing about it. And so, it works out really well. So we'll put this up on our Facebook page. And again, the other thing too, we didn't really talk about it, but just to remember, we kind of think of follow-up as part of like the whole pending process of like the patient didn't say no, but there's also follow-up for those who have dental work, those who have insurance needs. That's where, honestly, one of the areas where we find that practices get the most out of our services, and this isn't like a push for our services, just something to think about, is those patients. Because before I had a virtual assistant, I would see a patient, they'd say, yeah, I've got a crown, I've got some other dental work. I go, okay, let us know when it's ready. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh my, are we ever going to follow up on them? Like, my team going to remember to follow up? And, if you're using with our software, you just put in when it is, and then we're following up. And if they say, yeah, my appointment got changed, then we know to follow up at that changed appointment. That's the low hanging fruit for a practice, is those patients who have this work. And when you've called them up and, however you're doing it, but when a patient has a cavity and you can't get started, and then you call them up that day and you say, hey, how did your cavity go? You guys ready to start? Blows them away. I can't believe you remembered. And, yes, I'm excited, and so that's low hanging fruit for any practice. You guys got to figure out a way, if you're not using our program, to make sure you're remembering to call those patients the day they get their dental work done. Because they're like, usually they're excited to get started.
Totally agree.
So, I think what is the goal for all of us? You need to figure out a way to make this 100%. Right? You have to strive for perfection, 100% guarantee that 100% of your patients that come into your office, you're going to follow up with perfectly. Whatever that looks like in your mind, obviously there are ways that we feel that it should be done, but it has to be perfect, and you have to figure that out, because it is so powerful to building a practice. I am personal attestament to that. How once we got this worked out, and we were doing a lot of this before we even had the virtual assistant part, and it just made such an impact on my practice. So you guys, everybody's got to have a game plan. You've got some time now. We're opening up soon. Have that plan in place, and, get ready to be 100% on all those patients.
I agree. I think that if you, no one's going to be perfect, but strive for it, right? Like make this a thing. And especially right now, I think when we're coming back from coronavirus, if I can just say this last thing, is don't fall into the idea that there's an expectation that you're going to be down whatever percentage is. Mm-hmm. I'm going to guess that most people that are on this call that are listening to, they're getting Startaloo, and I will put a plug in for Startaloo, because you need to have that follow up. And, I get nothing out of it other than seeing you guys succeed. But man, that follow up is so important. But right now, like, if you were not a practice that was average anyway, then why are you accepting average again? Like, now that when we come back, don't be the average. If you felt like you were average before, what a better gift in the world that's been given to you right now than to say, you know what, I'm coming back not average. I'm doing all the stuff I wanted to do before. And by the way, every one of your team members will accept it.
Yeah. We have, do I have it here? Yeah, this was, so I'm putting together my game book, my game plan for coming back. And I was like, what do I call it? I don't want anything to be negative. I want this to be packed. So I took a picture of this. I know this, I wasn't planning on showing this, but this is what I sent to the team. It said Dr. B Smiles 2.0. So, we're not coming back in worse shape. We're coming back better. It may not look the same, and it may take a little while, but we're going to be better. And, that's something that for me to share that with the office is this is a real positive thing, that we're going to come back stronger. We're going to have better systems. We're going to have new technology. And honestly, like, they all seem really excited, which is cool, to kind of turn this around and get people excited to be coming back.
It's funny. I was talking to a doctor just the other day who told me his plan too. And it was like, okay, they're going to work 5 days a week, and they're going to have some half days, rolling split, days and stuff like that, because of, team members and things like that. He's got his whole plan. And I said, how cool is it, right? Think about this. last year, if you were to come to your team this summer and said, hey, by the way, we're going to work now 5 days instead of 4, and we're going to work half to split days and all that stuff, you would have had a mass exodus.
Yeah, right.
But right now, they're all like, okay, sure. And so take this opportunity. I wrote a post on my Facebook yesterday about how the world has stopped for you. Yeah. And it's got like over 100, shares up to this point, all this stuff. And the point of it was that this is your opportunity to make your business the way you want your business to be. Mm-hmm. Everyone's going to be like, okay, you tell people, hey, I want every single person to be greeted with, irashaimase, like you would in Japan, right? Or a Japanese mise or something like that, right? They're okay. I guess that's what we're doing, I guess, because you have that opportunity to do that. There's a question here for you from Annette who said, did you say that you have instructional videos for patients like OH?
So on our software, there are instructional videos on how appliances work. The idea is when the patient goes home and logs into their portal, when they see their financial payment, their financial options, they also can see why we recommended an expander, why was there a motion appliance or whatever it may be, so that it's educational. It's not like oral hygiene, because it's really meant to kind of help close the deal, like information as to why you need this appliance. So there are videos, but it's not like a patient come in, hygiene's not good, and you want to send them home with a video, because it's really meant for the pre-started patient.
Awesome. Let me see. Yep, that was it there.
Cool. All right. So, Dino, I am so thankful again that you came on. This was such a great conversation. I took a whole bunch of notes. I mean, so I'm going to go, and I've got some homework to do here. I love your enthusiasm. If you haven't checked Dino out on Facebook, you have to. Your stuff is amazing. What I love about what you do, and it's something that I love, is when you bring people in from other industries, and because we sometimes get so focused and we think it has to be ortho this and ortho that, but we're just a small speck in the world, and there's so much going on around us, so much great stuff that we can incorporate into our practices and our lives that come from outside the ortho industry. And you tend to do that on your Facebook page. So please, everybody, check him out. You've got such amazing stuff on there. So
thank you.
Yeah, so definitely check out your Facebook page and your website. So this is another boot camp session, and I would like to thank everybody for being on. We will have this up on our Facebook page tomorrow, and Wednesday we're going to be doing another session with Jacqueline Whidden, who's going to be talking about branding and some pretty cool stuff that she's doing. And so again, I think she's going to have some information from outside our industry, which is cool. She actually comes from outside the ortho world. So I love that, people bringing in fresh ideas. So check us out Wednesday. We'll be back to our normal time. We're normally at 4, but for, we just made a little adjustment change at 3:30. So if you did miss the beginning, check it out on Facebook and catch the beginning, because there was a lot of good stuff. So thank you everybody for being on, and thank you, Dino, again for being on today.
Absolutely. You guys have a great day.